As if the government doesn't have enough fronts to fight on everything from border protection to climate change, fault lines are widening under one of the promises the Prime Minister made to form government, the deal with independent Andrew Wilkie on poker machine reform. Labor MPs are reporting that in some states the issue's hurting the party even more than the carbon tax, and that's long before the planned changes even hit the Parliament. The reforms will require gamblers to nominate how much they're willing to lose and club owners to upgrade their machines to impose those limits. The clubs are waging a ruthless battle against the plans, and now Australia's war veterans are joining in on their side, as Hayden Cooper reports.
At the Castle Hill RSL Club in the outer suburbs of Sydney, Saturday morning gym classes have begun, and future Olympic hopefuls are polishing their routines.
Up, Rich.
But this is more than just a sports centre. It's become the front line in a political war, a war over poker machines.
It's going to cost jobs, it's going to hurt local businesses, and community groups, charities and sporting organisations are going to have their funding evaporate.
Some venues will have to change their business model, and so be it.
Tell me again how many machines you've got here, roughly?
Some 280 in the facility, which is low for a club of our size.
This club has an annual turnover of about $70 million. $24 million comes from the pokies.
But if I put that in...
Its president fears that the switch to mandatory pre-commitment means that revenue stream is now under threat.
It is, because it would require of us all of our machines at some considerable cost.
And that's the very basis of the National Clubs Australia campaign. Added cost and fewer gamblers will mean higher prices and less money for the many services that clubs offer. 1, 2, 3, go. Now the RSL has joined the campaign. It's written to the Prime Minister, making perhaps the most extreme claim of all: the very observance of Anzac Day is under threat.
If they have to outlay thousands, and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars to upgrade their poker machines, they just won't have the funds to be able to support the veterans in the community. There's many of our sub-branches are involved with services at the clubs, and if the clubs are unable to provide this service, and unfortunately I think the real problem will be that a number of clubs will actually fold.
Oh, look, I'm very sad with the way the RSL is managing this. I'm a member of the RSL.
Andrew Wilkie is the man behind the changes.
These are fantastic comments, complete nonsense. This is the sign of a poker machine industry thrashing around, prepared to do anything, to say anything, to stop these reforms.
Supporters of the change are wondering how far the club's campaign extends. On the New South Wales South Coast, Kate Roberts runs a gambling education service. For 10 years, she's received funding from her local clubs, but now it's gone. She senses retaliation.
This is the first year that we've received absolutely nothing, and we do believe that there's been a political payback for us supporting the gambling reforms. We were high on the priority for the 4 projects that we put in for, and we know that from the committee process, and yet they still chose not to fund us. And that's the first time in 10 years that that's happened.
Look, I'm not aware of any of that.
Clubs Australia says its members don't even make those funding decisions. Instead, it's done by a committee formed by councils, government and welfare groups.
I can tell you that clubs will continue to support worthy community groups and charities.
Would it disturb you if some clubs were acting in that way?
Well, it would, and we would never encourage that. We will encourage our clubs to work with the Salvos and any other great community organisation.
For federal Labor MPs, especially those in the club culture states of Queensland and New South Wales, this is an issue they can't ignore. Because, like it or not, the campaign is personal, tailored for each marginal electorate. Fronting up to a hostile crowd is unavoidable.
Can I say that one of the things I want to do here today is listen to your message, and I've got it. Okay, I've got it.
Only Abbott would sell his soul to be
there is 1 million Australian soldiers and women overseas dead, and you're trying to bring in a law that they fought for freedom and liberty.
Yeah, I've seen your sign.
Dope shot, windbag, swan song, they're all bloody idiots, aren't they?
In private, some MPs concede it's hurting them more than the carbon tax.
Well, we're going to Labor heartland. This is where clubs are. This is where they really started, and this is really the heart of our industry.
We should be very careful not to think that the very rich poker machine industry and the small number of club members that they whip up with fear with their lies, we shouldn't be thinking for a moment that they're representative of the broader community, because they're not.
But Labor MPs are treating them seriously and placating the mob when they can.
Whatever we do, we've got to make sure that it doesn't threaten the viability of our clubs and pubs.
The Minister draws comfort from opinion polls consistently showing the majority of Australians do support pre-commitment, despite the ferocious campaign.
That bullying demonstrably isn't working with the broader Australian public who still think that the government should act to deal with problem gambling.
When it does come to a vote next year, the independents will have the final say, and expectations of their support are diminishing. For the government, that's a dilemma in itself. Andrew Wilkie says his threat to abandon Julia Gillard stands.
It is the case that some Labor MPs are feeling a lot of pressure at the moment because of this campaign against them personally now. But I'm confident that they'll hold their nerve. I mean, they know that they're only the government because they made this agreement.
Holding their nerve may only get harder, especially if the grassroots community campaign works. For both sides, as ever, it's all in the execution.
Arms reach!